We test like Rotary does. Right, Diane?
So, everybody's running here today.
Yeah.
Yes, so we'll begin with the dispensing of the minutes from the May 10th HHS meeting. With there any changes, otherwise I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I will second
All
that.
right, motion by Commissioner Dahlheiden, second by Commissioner Hewsome. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved unanimously. Today's agenda, is there any modifications or additions to today's agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion by Commissioner Dahlheiden,
Second.
second by Commissioner Wetter. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Approval, the agenda is approved unanimously. All right, today's consent agenda. 3 items on there.
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda, except for 5 is under consent agenda.
Oh, 5, I'm
It
sorry.
really shouldn't be. 5 and 6.
So, so with that, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Hewsome. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda is approved unanimously. Now we are on to the next item on the agenda is the new hires. Just shy of a handful.
Yeah, almost a handful, that's what we'll call them. So we do have 4 new hires with us today. 3 of them are brand new, with today being their first day at work. First, I would like to introduce Leanne Bethke to you. She is our office technician 2 in the Adult Family and Financial Services, which is up on the 3rd floor. And she started a week ago on June 7th. So this is Leanne.
Hello,
Welcome. Now the grilling, Commissioner Delane.
I don't know why I get
We're all
stuck
very
with
worried about what your questions will be.
that. Yeah, I heard Jamie, warn her, but she didn't say anything about having to recite the preamble to the Constitution, which was another requirement that we've just started imposing.
Today.
I'm gonna fail that requirement.
There wouldn't be anybody in this room, that I think would do it. So, where are you from?
I live in Albertville.
No, is that where you grew up in Albertville?
I graduated actually from Buffalo.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
See, lifetime Wright County resident. Look at that.
Totally.
And, what else do we know?
What were you doing before you came to us?
Yeah, that was the other question.
I did billing for a roll-off company and I drove school bus.
Nice.
Uh-oh.
So in a pinch, you can drive the big van.
I
Okay.
could,
that's
yeah.
There you go.
For Don's?
Yep, for done.
Okay, don't tell him you came to work here. I don't want to get into trouble with the boys.
Oh, that's funny.
The boys.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Leanne.
Yeah,
Next we
thank you.
have
Welcome.
Dina Lambert. So Dina, today is her first day. She's an eligibility specialist, also on the 3rd floor. She's with our Adult Family Financial Services unit. And they both report to Stephanie. Correct, Stephanie? Michelle. They both, okay. I'm sorry. Dina reports to Michelle Zach. So welcome, Dina. Same questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, where do you grew?
Okay, I'm from Big Lake, and my first job, I worked at Cargill as a food handler.
So you live in Big Lake now?
Yep.
And that's where you grew up then too?
No,
Oh,
I grew up in North Minneapolis.
Okay.
Ah,
Yes.
Yeah, let's not go back that road. No.
Well, we're glad you're here now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Next, we have Amber Davis. She's our new case aide in child protection, our CP1 team. So welcome, Amber. She started today as well.
So I grew up in St. Michael, now I live in Big Lake. And then I used to do corrections at the Wright County
I'm sorry, you what?
Corrections.
Oh, okay.
This is the correctional officer for Wright County.
Oh, really?
Oh, okay. Maybe you work with my son.
We're very happy with HHS now.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, at least you're making the right moves in the right county.
Right decision.
Just, unfortunately, you don't live in the right county.
No, I did, but then we bought a house and
Yeah. Welcome.
And finally, we have Don Wallstrom, and Don is another eligibility specialist, again with the Adult and Family Financial Services. You've been on a hiring streak, I guess, back there, Michelle. And she started today, so welcome Don to our board meeting. And questions?
Yes, I grew up in this area most of my life, but about a year ago. And previously I worked for United Health Group in Austin.
We're very happy to be welcoming out 4 of these new staff over the
Yeah.
last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and only one of them is in the right county.
Right now.
But they all work in the right
Yeah,
company.
they absolutely, yes.
Think how much
They've
struggle-
made the
how
right
struggle they must
decision.
be to make the grade without living in the right county. They
Right.
must be really, really good
Yeah, at least they
candidates.
made the right choice.
That's right.
Michelle's impartial to Big Lake, that's what it is, right?
Anyway, welcome all of you.
All right, very good. Now the wonderful Employee of the Month for July.
So if Alexis would join me on board, this is Alexis Kohler. She is our July Employee of the Month. And so our Employee of the Month is Alexis Kohler. Alexis joined Wright County HHS as an intern in 2018. Alexis was a temporary case aide assisting with supervised visitation. She joined HHS as a full-time social worker in January 2019. Alexis is always eager to volunteer and is a member of the Continuous Improvement Committee. Her nominator states in part, Alexis is my task supervisor as I'm currently a social work intern with the county from St. Cloud State University until December. Alexis has gone above and beyond to empower me to challenge my current knowledge with new propositions and proposals. I'm not sure what those are, so that's good. I have not only seen her do this myself, but also with clients. Alexis is a case manager who you know will advocate for clients and interns. She consistently checks in on me to see what other resources I need to make sure that I'm getting the most out of my internship while she's excelling with her own caseload. I feel as though I've had an abundance of opportunities and experiences at Wright County because of the tools and resources that Alexis has provided me. Alexis is always quick to respond to my questions and gracious even when it may be the 100th question I've asked that day. Alexis also makes it a point to get me as much face time with clients via Zoom during the pandemic. Alexis is consistently present, punctual, and professional in her work. She's a team player who contributes to the overall good of the team, department, community, and the county. The county is very fortunate to have a diligent and conscientious worker like Alexis. So thank you, Alexis, on being our HHS July Employee of the Month. And I think those comments are especially apt when we have been so virtual during this time of this person's internship. So it probably took an effort to try to keep her in the loop and everything else. So thank you so much, Alexis.
Sure.
So I understood you to be an intern at one time?
You might remember me from a few years ago. Maybe not, but you had a celebratory lunch with me over at the Historical Center.
Oh.
Oh, I remember that now, okay.
Yes.
No, I don't, but okay, good.
I can let all the other interns
I
know that that's what
remember.
you'll be doing from now on.
Yeah, that was a
Yeah.
while ago now, but yeah, I interned and I started case aiding and did some temp work to get my foot in the door. And
Yeah.
you guys have kept me for a little bit, so.
And we always feel like
Yeah.
it's important that we give our interns a leg up, but sometimes when work just gets so busy, I think it's easy to kind of let that part go. So it's really, and then, then we're rewarded when we see a great intern that we can later hire. So, it kind of goes in both directions. But
Yeah, it
this
worked
is-
out good for you being an intern and understanding
Yes.
what you kind of went through.
It made it really easy, honestly, to kind of move into my role because I had such a good background, knowledge from my intern.
Alexis is also one of our new, are you a brand new teleworker? Or did you start
I
last
started
time?
right before the pandemic.
Okay, so she's also one of our teleworkers.
Wow.
She's been a great
Congratulations.
addition. So-
And you work out at the, well, no, you don't work anymore. I mean,
Teleworkers don't work.
I spent time at the HSE, yeah. Part-time there, part-time at home, which is in the Wright County, might I add, so.
oh, good.
So, Health and Human Services, we have so many policies and procedures about everything. This just brings up, now I suppose we'll have to have a policy for what to do with the Employee of the Month parking spot over there when the Employee of the Month is a teleworker. Either you have to come in every day and park there, or we have to find somebody else to take her spot. So I'm sure we'll have a policy along those
Yeah, we'll
lines
have
or
to figure
something.
one out.
Commissioner Dahlheiden will come and shovel your driveway for a month this
Oh,
winter.
nice.
Where do you live in the Wright County?
In the Wright County, yeah.
Where?
Me too, is Rockford.
That's too far.
Alexis.
Thank you.
Actually,
Far
I've
for
forgotten
me,
about our
too.
thing out there at the Historical Society.
Ah, very nice. Regular agenda items, we have the
You gotta-
Information and contracted
Works hard.
case management. Boy, this is going on like 2 years now, or is it 3?
We're in the middle of our second year, so going on 3.
Going to say it all blurs together, but
Yeah, so Leanne, I don't know, we have all new names within our teams. What's your team name, Leanne?
Waiver and community supports.
She's our
Okay.
waiver community support supervisor, and she is here to present on contracted case management for our 2 new commissioners. We basically have a large and growing caseload of cases that we have go out to a contracted case manager who then they obtain the funds for case managing because we don't have staff to support the number of people we have on waivers and things like that here in Wright County. So, and we like to do this before budget, and I'll warn you right ahead, we're not asking for a waiver social worker during budget. However, not yet, we'll see how this goes. So with that information, I'm just gonna turn it over to Leanne.
Well, one thing before you start, Leanne, for the new commissioners, one of the reasons why we did decide to do this is that we end up having to service people that were not in Wright County, that were in other locations in the cities and that sort of stuff because it started here, and I don't remember how it
We
worked.
have clients all over the state.
So it made more sense instead of having our people drive to them, to hire a contractor to do it, that had people all over.
And it was a numbers game, and that's partly of what Leanne will be going through. While waivers are highly reimbursed quite highly, it's, I think, maybe difficult for the board to see how the number of positions that we would need in order to maintain all of the cases, and it's a growing caseload. And we're one of the fastest growing counties, which this means that this caseload grows just as fast as the rest of the county does.
So, thank you for letting me come and share a little information with you. Today, the information being shared is mostly about our under 65 waivers. Those are the waivers for folks that are disabled, either physically or intellectually, and are under the age of 65. We also have several waivers and programs for the over 65 population, but I've not included most of their numbers today, because at this point, the only cases we have contracted out are folks under 65. I think maybe Amy sent all of you a paper copy, otherwise
It's on our
It's in the
computer.
packet.
Yeah, in our packet.
numbers are up there. A year ago, I was here with the manager, Jill Pooler, and we talked about where we were at, where our numbers were at, what we could do, and at that point, it was decided that we would contract more, send more cases out for contracted case management. At the time, said we'd come back in a year and talk about it again. Well, to quote some movie that I don't remember what, I'm back. So where we currently are at is we currently have contracted out 560 cases. Fairly good sized number, but a bigger number is the number that we still have internally. And that right now we're sitting at about 920. And I say the about because we run the numbers at the end of every month, and we're now at the 14th of June. So that number is probably a couple higher just because we've assigned new cases. Those numbers have gone up every year, every month. To give you an indication, last year when we were here, we had right around 920 cases. And if you just remember, I just said we're back at 920 cases. That's after sending 120 out. So the numbers are not getting smaller. We have not changed the number of our internal case managers at this point. So we are still at, there are currently 14 internal case managers. A little historical, again, we started this process of contracting out in 2018 when we sent about 400, it was right around 440 cases. 2020, we sent out another 120. Now, this reduces, as Jamie has said, in not keeping all of those cases, we didn't have to request to hire additional staff in order to deal with those cases or to handle those cases. We were able to do that, keeping our waiver revenue pretty stable. And I think that will be a subsequent, wrong button, sorry. Maybe we should see this one again, okay. There we go. Yeah, I think maybe I hit it too many times and it didn't go anymore. So if you look at the graph, and I realize it's in pretty small font, the orangish color, that was 2020, and the gray color is 2021. You can see it's fluctuated somewhat. If we could average it all out, it would look pretty even. And if you look, you can realize that November and December look very skewed, with one month being a very high, and then the next month very low. Some of that may have to do with the point in time in the month that the checks actually come for our reimbursement. So we may have billed something in November, but we didn't get the check, so to speak, until December. So if you were to average it out, it would average out fairly steady. Just some things to let you know what's been going on in the last year. 2020 is rough on everybody, I think, with the pandemic and everything. We added a little more to that, in that I had a staff retire in May, and it took us till the end of July to replace that position. I also had 2 staff out on medical leave, about 3 months apiece. Those all affect how many hours there are of case management time available for possible billing.
And just so you understand, so that means billable time. So we bill the time they have, so when we're vacant, then we don't bill that time. So it's just an opportunity for revenue. That's not.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
how many do you have on staff?
I have 14 case managers.
Okay,
2 of those deal with the over 65 population.
okay.
The other 12 deal with 0 to 65.
I'm sorry, you may have said that already and I missed it.
It's okay. Please feel free to ask questions.
Okay.
Because, I mean, I may, be able to go on and on and on talking about this, but I've been doing this for a long time. So for some of you, this may be a little newer type information.
No.
This gives you an idea of where some of our neighboring counties stand in terms of their caseload size. There's asterisks on Olmsted County because their workers do both the assessment and case management. Our staff, the staff in my unit as case managers, just do case management.
And can you explain the CCB and DD?
Okay, so CCB, that's actually 3 waivers. One is the CADI waiver, Community Alternatives for Disability Inclusion. Those are folks, many of them with physical disabilities, many of them with mental health issues, but they're 0 to 65. They all have to be certified as disabled, either through the SMRTing process, which is what the state does, or through the Social Security. So 1C is CADI, 1C is CAC, and those are our most physically and health-wise impaired individuals. Those are folks that if we can't provide the appropriate services for them in their home, they will be in the hospital. So we are avoiding hospitalizations by the services we provide, whereas for the other waivers, we're preventing nursing home or institutional placements. The B in CCB is for brain injury, and just as it implies, it is for folks that have brain injuries. And then the DD, that is for those who are developmentally disabled. And at this point, those are 4 different waivers with slightly different menus of services that can be provided. All of them are to avoid either hospitalization or institutionalization. The goal is to keep these individuals in the community and out of placement. So that gives you an idea of where things stand with other counties. Just maybe for some of you as a reminder that having a larger caseload does not necessarily mean we can increase our revenue. We all know there's 40 hours a week. That's the work week. And it doesn't matter whether we have 20 clients to deal with or 70. We still only have 40 hours in a week. So we can't add new clients to our caseloads and just have that additional work on top of what we're already doing. There's also things that we have to do, some paperwork, other things that aren't reimbursable, that we can't bill to have medical assistants reimburse us. So the more clients you're dealing with, the larger that amount of unbillable time can be. And there is, having too many cases can cause a worker to be rushed, to make, little mistakes, little errors, whether that be in the paperwork they complete or what. But to do good work, to do the best we can, caseloads, there is a point when the caseloads are too big. We talk sometime about doing A work. A work is right up there when you have the right sized caseload. Your caseload gets too big and it becomes harder and harder, and workers, though they don't want to do that, may have to end up doing B work or maybe even C work some days. There is more to what the case managers do than just their caseload size. A person, for instance, who needs a placement, needs us to find them a foster home or a customized living to live in. That can be very time consuming. You get a half a dozen people that all need placement at the same time. That can be a lot more difficult that week or that month than if you've got 24 people who are all pretty stable and it's keeping things running. So we have no timetable or sign-up sheet for who gets a crisis this week. And so sometimes it can become very overwhelming for the workers with the number of crises they have to deal with.
Could you have a case aide do the searching for places for people to live and that sort of stuff instead of having those?
Well, most of the time, facilities want to know about the person. They want to talk to somebody who knows the person and knows about them. So, yeah, case aides can make some phone calls and that kind of thing. I'll just kind of put in a plug there, too. At this point, we have one case aide for 14 case managers. So, yep, there are things that they can do and that they help with, but they can't pick up a lot because their plates are already filled.
Just a note that Leanne supervises all 14.
And
It's
15
not-
with the case aide, but
15, she's got the largest team.
Yeah, well, that's because she's the best.
that or, been here longer than dirt, I'm not sure.
I know
We
you haven't
factor
heard
all of
much.
that in.
This actually may be a slide, those of you that are here last year when we came and talked, that Jill presented. About every 5 years, DHS comes and does what they call a lead agency review. So we had ours done in 2020, just before, well, what happened in March, yeah. just before then, they were here for our lead agency review, and some of the things that feedback they gave us was that our contracted case managers, because they are our clients, they're Wright County clients, their cases were included in the lead agency review. And there were, in their cases, slightly fewer pieces of missing information. And it was attributed due to the fact that both of the agencies we contract with try to keep their case management caseloads between 40 and 50. So they have smaller caseloads than our internal workers do. But the other thing that they found was that Wright County ranked #1 out of the 87 counties in the highest number of difficult clients, the neediest clients in our EW program, that's over 65 folks, and we're 3rd with the CADDY program. So we are serving a lot of people and a lot of people with high needs.
And a lot of those high needs cases, we do not give out to the contracted case management, and we keep those internally because of the needs and the oversight required.
I'd be interested to see what they use for a ranking to determine
Yeah.
as the highest versus the lowest
And I've been
needs, you
hearing
know?
this for like 4 or 5 years, like our clients have a higher acuity of, you know, of needs, of, you know, disabilities, and I can't imagine, I can't think of why that's us.
I don't know why it's us, but how they make that determination is based on the assessments that are done. In the EW world, things are based on their person's case mix. So the higher case mix you have, and it's A through I, J, the higher the letter, the more needs that person has. The more ADLs they have, the more assistance they need with things, that kind of thing. In CADDY, they still do get a case mix. And so that, again, is based on their ADLs, their dependencies. They also look at the amount and type of services. Someone who may not have a huge case mix, maybe be only a B, but a B case mix also tells me they have mental health issues. That person may need of.
And we're not assigning the letter grade, that's being assigned by the medical.
That's all part of the assessment. Some benefits to contracting out. To be more client focused, to have the time to really be looking at what is going on with clients and not having all our time taken up by paperwork for 70 clients, but having more time to, whether it's visit with them, make those additional phone calls, or now that we can start seeing our clients face to face again, see those clients more than what the requirement is. Also, we're looking at the ability to right size their caseloads so that we can meet the client's needs, but also maintain our budget. The last one on the list is to allow staff time to bridge with community partners. And if I would say there's something that the staff will express wanting to do, but at the end of the day, they've run out of time. And that is become more involved in our community partners and in community, you know, who's providing the services, to get to know our providers a little better, to be part of the communities that they serve and their clients are living in. So those are some benefits, which brings us to what's next. I have to say right now, our caseloads are too big. And that's across the board, across all 14 of the case managers. Possibilities could be sending more out to contracted case management. Jill's idea was, maybe if we could send 70 cases out, and then over the next whatever period of time, the next 30 cases that come up to be assigned to a case manager go out to contracted instead of an internal case manager. Either of those items, both those items would be budget neutral. And then we work hard on that and making sure all of we capture as much of our billable time as possible. That is one option, is to contract some cases out. But I didn't come here today to necessarily ask for that. I just put it on the table as it's a possibility, something to consider, an option that might be available to us. I know I've thrown a lot of information out. Is there any questions or anything about our programs that you're not aware of or aren't familiar with that you would like a little explanation for?
So I know last summer around June, July, probably related to COVID, that you guys kind of had like a backlog on getting the COLA adjustments to waivers, because I had a phone call from some different individuals in terms of, but you'd always get that renewal amount out to people at this date, and you guys were tracking like 14 to 30 days behind. You had a backlog. I don't know. I'm guessing, is that because of the case sizes, or is it?
I'd say yes. It probably was about the case sizes. If it's when I'm thinking of, there was a COLA in one particular one of the services that are provided under the waivers. There was a COLA, and the case aide that does that COLA was on medical leave, so there was a little lag there. She was only working part-time and then putting in with all the large number of clients that we had.
Do we do the COLA work for all the clients or just the ones that work case managers?
No, we do all the clients, because one of the things with contracted case management that those current 500 and some cases that we have sent out to contracted case management, that does not mean that we have sent them out and we don't do anything with them. They are case managed by one of our contracted agencies. But in terms of, the county, still do all the assessments and reassessments for the waiver services. That piece of the job is always the county's. We can't contract out the assessment, reassessment piece. So we still do that. We still have that client that we're involved with for the assessment process, even though they have a contracted case management. The other item is the contracted agencies do not have access to MMIS, which is the system we enter information into so that providers can bill for services. And only the county can enter information into that. So we still have to do all the service agreements for all the contracted.
So, and see if I'm connecting the dots right, because based on the people that I talk to, because like we're pretty vulnerable when in that area, because if we have one or two people out and they're under a contracted case manager and they come up to this renewal window, and if we get backlogged, contracted case manager can't bill anything in because that COLA hasn't been adjusted. So they really, from what they were explaining to me, that it like basically puts them in like a nothing period of time where they can't do any billables. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what they were trying to explain to me. That
They wouldn't be able to bill
Yep.
if the COLA increase hadn't been entered into MMIS.
Yep. So that's where it's like, luckily you guys rectified it within like 2 weeks, which was good, because considering the fact that the leave was probably longer than that, but if you would take that times two people, there's just on a lot of relief factors, and you can have dozens and dozens of cases that are the service, especially if you're talking about people that literally, they're home health people that come to take care of them. If they don't get paid after 2 weeks, they probably won't come. And that's what these people were really kind of like getting stressed out, because they're like, so.
And that is a possibility, yes.
Yep.
Now, are the case aides, are they billable?
Yes, their time is billable when it is specifically client-related.
Which should be quite a bit of the time, I would
Yes,
assume.
yes, it is quite a bit of the time.
And we looked at this a number of years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, to make sure that the work that people were doing that could be billable, and that the work that was most appropriate to like the classification. So if a case aide could do it versus a social worker, and we could get billable time and it was appropriate, then we would have the case aide do it, so.
We can't get these people to work their 40 hours all billable and then work on the weekends for the stuff that's not billable?
Well, you know, and the one comment that she made
That
during
sounds
this
legal.
was about the 40 hours, and that we, you know, each case is
I'm
unbillable.
just kidding.
I know, but I mean, it took me this long, I think, all these years that I've been here doing this job, to kind of deduce that this is the unbillable time. If you've got 100 cases and all with unbillable time, that just reduces then the amount of time you can bill if you have a high caseload, you know, so it's kind of a catch-22.
And we also have to keep in mind that some people, not me, might take a vacation.
Oh.
And then you might have.
She doesn't take vacations.
Oh, I opened myself up for that one.
She also works more than 40 hours every week, so.
But, so even vacation, or we expect people to get training so that they can do their job better, that's not billable. So, you know, when thinking how much of a person's 40 hours a week, can we expect them to do billable activities? You know, we have to weigh those things that aren't billable versus the things they can do that
So is this
are.
where the 63% comes in?
That's where the 63% comes
So
in.
we found the magic number is 63% of their time, and we measure this. I mean, it's in their job performance review. For staff to be meeting their core competency, they should be billing at least 63% of their time. And if folks can do more than that, that's great, but that's kind of the threshold that we've set. We don't want to see people with less than 63% of their time being billable in order for us to, you know, maximize the revenue and maximize what we need to do for our clients at the same time being paid for our staff time.
So with 14 people, at least half of the year, you're short one person, right? Assuming 2 weeks. You know, and I'm sure some of them have more, some of them use all of their time. You know, some
And-
people don't want to use any of their time.
And unfortunately, people get sick, and, you know, unfortunately, we just had a year where I'd venture a guess just about half of the staff in my unit had COVID over the past year.
And as an example, I think it's an average, but I think we think waiver workers for reimbursability is about $100,000 a year. So they don't make $100,000 a year, you know, but then with everything that's added. So to the board, the question really is, we could add a whole bunch of positions and actually be reimbursed at $100,000 a year per, but then that would mean another social worker supervisor to take care of those staff, and that would be more administration staff to take care of, you know, all of the work that goes along with that. So it's really just kind of this balance. So I'm not asking for the boards to make any decision right now, because I think this is just operations, you know, it's the decisions that we make. Guess what I'm coming here is telling you that if we change anything in the way that we're going forward, like, because we'll probably farm out some more cases and we'll keep an eye on it, and so my information is to you is that we're watching it, we know what we're looking for. I guess for the board to tell me, if you ever decide you want to go the other direction and keep more cases in-house, the positions can basically pay for themselves, but it means more positions. And I don't want to give up positions in other areas that we need for things we can't contract out, if this is one of those few areas that we actually can contract out, you know, for positions. So I guess it's for me just to let you guys know this is kind of where we're at. Nothing's changed. The status quo is the same since 2018, 2019, 2020. We'll likely have some more cases go out, but if you guys ever want to just change direction, let me know.
Commissioner Catchmark.
Yes, thank you. So, and we talk about going the other direction and this direction. What my thought is, what I'm hearing is, what about the proposal of keeping the mandatory things here, the assessment process, and then the choice of keeping the high need client people here because they need and get the best service that way. But how about contracting the other clients out. Has anyone ever done that proposal, or could we see what that looked like?
You're probably scaring Leanne a lot right now.
Well, but
Our concern, well, right, some counties, I think Hennepin
There
contracts with almost all
are
of the
a number of
cases.
the metro counties have only their most complicated cases that they case manage internally.
We don't think it's the best mix
Um,
to give up control over so much of it. And we are really ceding a lot of revenue to these other, to these other entities. Because we get min-choice revenue for doing the assessments, every year. But I think for us being a mid-sized county, it's a good balance the way that we're doing it right now. I feel we're kind of putting our feet in the water with our third of the caseload. I think half of the caseload would be kind of pushing it as far as issues that we would run into. We could have one of these agencies go belly up, then what? We could have, we could have the state change their, something fairly drastically, and then we're out of control of a lot of the cases, and we're not as nimble as we were when we kind of keep both feet firmly planted in case management.
And the state would never do anything like that.
No.
Not without due consideration.
Well, that's the biggest concern that I'd have is like, I think you have wanting to have a mix, like a 65 internal, 35 contracted out kind of mix, for the fact that at any time, those contractors can drop it based on what the state feels they want to do their funding percentage at. We're at that whim. And at the end of the day, if they drop it, you're stuck picking it up in a snap of a finger.
They could have staffing issues, which would not be unheard of at this time,
And
that
they
they can't
have.
staff up, and then, guess what? We get the cases back, we don't have the staff, and then you guys are getting a lot of calls, because people aren't very happy that we're not delivering.
I mean, yeah.
just a question on the contract aspect. Are we signing these for 1, 2, 3 years, or as needed, or how is that part working? Where
Diane is with us, and I think Diane has a handle on it.
I think it's 2 years.
2 years?
So if 1 year into it, they time out, we can't do it anymore, the contract responsibility would be for them to find somebody else to fulfill it, right?
No.
I-
They can, the way the contract is,
We're
they
the
can.
holder of the people.
Services, yeah.
They are ultimately our clients.
I will just say though that agencies we're working with have been around a really long time. I mean, they're not like new up and comers that we should be concerned. They've
And
been
they work-
in the business for many years.
And they work for a lot of counties, so we would be with other counties trying to dig out of a pretty big hole.
But however, let's say, because it was first 6 months into this, we struggled because the labor market was really difficult for social workers at that period of time, and they were getting high turnover. They rectified it. They were very, very frank with us, but we knew internally because we were struggling the same way and trying to get the waiver
We talked about
services
pulling the
managers.
plug at that time,
So,
We're further into it now than we were then, and we were thinking about.
and any of that stuff is possible in the way society is right now, in terms of the labor market or just the way the government funds things. At the whim of anything, it can change.
And Mr. Chair, I like this model because, I mean, you've got a lot that you're already dealing with, and if you can send out services, so the more employees we have, of course, then we're paying the benefits, and they may, pay for itself, essentially, the position, but still, it just is just kind of nice to have a little wiggle room for your team, and so, yeah.
I think Leanne right now feels like she doesn't have a lot of wiggle room.
I was just gonna say, right now, we don't have any wiggle, but
So we'll be discussing over the course of the summer about next steps, which you see here. We'll likely do something along the lines of having some more cases going out, because otherwise I'd be taking a position from somewhere else and putting it there, and there's not a lot of.
So not to surprise us,
What's
how
that?
many, so not to surprise us in August, how many are you thinking right now that you're gonna be needing?
Right now, I have
HHS
2
overall.
firm that I'd be looking at, both in social services.
Okay.
So I don't know, not to tell all my folks back here, don't spill the beans, guys.
I mean, as far as having another supervisor, if it was any other supervisor, I'd say, yeah, probably they would have to. But with Leanne, I
Yeah,
think
we'll
she
just
could
keep
handle
working her as
more.
hard as we are. We'll say, now you have to work 80 hours a week, and then we're good. He's not in a union, we're okay.
Thanks.
Well, she doesn't want a vacation, so obviously.
Exactly.
Oh, I don't know. I have a little grandbaby that's getting, you know, old enough to, maybe it's about time to go to Disneyland or something.
Yeah,
Well, thank you, Leanne, this was very helpful.
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Well,
thank you.
again, thank you very much for your time and for letting me talk to you about something that I feel very strongly about, the clients of Wright County.
You
Yeah.
did a great job.
Important work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It helped me understand a lot better.
Yeah.
The one thing I would hope is that you guys have maybe a 2-3 year plan, because I mean, even based on you taking 70 of the current cases out and adding 30, you're still trending within 18 months to be at 75 per worker and growing. So, I mean,
Right.
at a certain point, it becomes unsustainable.
Right.
And I mean, the only way it becomes sustainable is if you end up going to the model where we end up going 65% of it contracted, 35% internal. And I don't know, I guess that's more of a decision of the board, because that does
Yeah,
put
we
a
have to weigh the
different.
costs and,
And I have heard from other counties, you know, they'll do it a little bit different. Some counties will do it somewhat like we do, which is send out a bunch at a time. Other counties set a number, you know, we're gonna have 1,000 internal, you know, that we're case managing internal. And anytime there's a referral that would put us over that number, it goes out to contracted. Just, you know, to let you know that last year we sent out about 80 cases right away, and we saved 40 of those slots that Jamie gave us, and then we, as a new referral, came in. So the next 40 cases that came in, we sent out. That lasted us about 2.5 months. And we had used all those slots up. So
Yeah, I just like to be able to be, you know, there are cyclical kinds of things going on, you've got internal staffing kinds of things going on. I don't necessarily want to be tying down to a specific number. I kind of like to keep a finger on the pulse and see how things are progressing. And just be, you know, cognizant of kind of where the staff are. And I think we've helped them, and a lot of the staff did not want to contract out. They felt a lot of ownership for county, or for the clients. And so that was a hurdle, just because they didn't want to let clients go. I think now we're past that, and staff are more like, oh, I can see what I can get done now when I don't have so many clients. And they kind of like that part of the social work too. So we have to be accountable, but we have to be, I think, strategic in how we go forward.
I'm assuming the ones that have the highest needs on those new ones, you kind of keep that one and give something else up then?
the issue about like keeping all the new ones is the bulk of work that comes at the very beginning when we first get a new client, because that's somebody you don't know, and you have to figure out, talk to them, meet with them, get to know what services they do need. Then you get those services all set up. So in many ways, if cases were to go through our intake, be assessed, be given a waiver slot, because at this point in time, our process is still, we hold tight to every slot and give them out as people are assessed. If as soon as we gave that person a slot, we gave them to a case manager through contracted, then that case manager would start right from the get-go, right at the beginning of their opening the waiver, and would be the one to set up all the services and find the providers, et cetera. So in some ways, that model works a little better than our taking cases we've got all set up and passing them on.
Okay,
The other thing is that then the client is only getting to know one person, whereas currently they know our person, establish a relationship. Oh, well, I don't want to get transferred to somebody else. Whereas if the case came in and we funneled it right out, they've never known anything different.
But here's the question that, okay, so you contract out these cases, and this contracted case manager can manage 95% of the work. 5% of that work still has to maintain at the county. All right, now that 5% right now is being that spread out amongst all these different staff that already have internally large caseloads.
Nope, we have another unit that is our reassessment unit, and the reassessment unit does the assessments for these, for all of the.
Unless you're referring to that little 5% being the entry into MMIS.
Yes.
And that's a
that piece.
support
And the
staff
COLA pieces
person.
and stuff like that.
That's part of what our case aid does.
Yeah, but that's one person that is doing 5% of 360 cases. Now that one position's going to do, now we're gonna add another 70 into it. Like, in that case, it is supposed to be facilitating these other people that have 70 cases. And that's where like, okay, I get that you want to be thrifty with it, but at the end of the day, I mean, only reason is because when you talk to these people, and I caution ourselves of, I don't want to be Hennepin County, and I don't want to be that place where people call and they just get cited to 6 phone numbers to really go to nowhere, to never get the answer to the question. And
So not necessarily for.
and it's not a costly thing, and really this is a very small, I mean, really you're talking the difference at a certain point, there's a trigger point where X amount of cases, it triggers the fact that you have to consider having another case aid. Because you're not talking about a supervisor other than the fact that, okay, it's one more person under here, but.
Right, so I would say the supervisor spends a lot of time figuring out those things. Where do we have the area that we can kind of squeeze this piece or that piece into? And I would go so far as to say it's maybe our acuity issue with our people with high needs might be some of our more populous counties around us, and their clients get frustrated with the services they're getting in those counties, so they move out to a different county where they feel they could get better services. Not saying it's the case, but it occurs to me that
No,
that
it is
could
the case.
be-
It is the case because literally after a while, people in the Hennepin
word
County
gets
area get
out.
tired of the fact that they can't get the questions. They eventually get to the point where things become unbillable and unanswerable. So they really are forced to, I mean, I don't know. It's
I know, it's a very convoluted and complex area. Thank you, Leanne.
yeah. So
Thank you much.
I just hope we would look at it and actually kind of just put. It's easier because I'm all about sustainability and predictability in people's taxes. And it's about creating what is the trigger points, and then you can predict based on our growth when we're going to hit these trigger points. So then
And I think there's other things that we didn't touch on. I think we've increased technology. Right before the pandemic, social services went live. Leanne would not necessarily agree with me, but in the long run, we increased technology, and that potentially could change the dynamic of how many cases one person could, service. Just because if you make efficiencies and things like that in other areas, or, I think there's opportunities that we could still research to see how we get that best optimum place.
well, I'd be interested to see if you ran the math on it and said, okay, instead of going with 70 contracted cases out, we are going to go with 140 contracted cases out. And we're going to change the case management time from 70 to 60, but we're going to add 2 new case aides in that area and do the math based on the billable hours. I'd be curious. I bet the numbers could come out relatively flat or be marginally small increase, but you're actually going to give people better service all the way
I hope
around.
Kate Dahl is taking some notes back there,
That's
so,
why I'm doing the math in my head.
yeah.
I'm just
We have meetings like this all the time, commissioners, just so you know. We have where we spin things this way and we spin things another way, and we do try to be predicted, how we can be more predictive in what we do. And Jill Pooler is out right now, but when she's back, I think she and Kate putting their heads together could come up with some models that we could share too.
I'd be interested. I don't know.
I get what you're going with.
Yeah.
So that I do understand, we don't send anybody out of the county that's 65 and older, right?
At this time, no.
Oh, good.
Those are all case
So
managed
we want to keep
in-house.
that so that in a couple of years when I need it,
Are you planning on getting a waiver?
well, it'll depend on my wife.
Well, we do appreciate your attention to this. It's just something that we do talk about so much, and I just think it's great that you all seem like you have a very knowledgeable base about how this all works, so thank you.
Oh, fun. All right. Now we're on to the second timed item, the jail update.
Yeah, so I
Diane.
believe the JN on the screen is Jill Medestad, and she is here with Diane Erkins to give us an update. This was another thing that we talked about with the board maybe a year ago, maybe about the same time that we did the case management update. And with that, I will let Diane fill you in.
So I passed out the jail stats from 2020. So we've had 211 instances of discharge. 4 of those inmates are still waiting for the 60-day follow-up period. So what we do is after 60 days post-discharge, we contact the inmate and try to see where they're at, what the recidivism is, you know, if they need all the services and have all the services they need, those kinds of things. And we track all of that information. We've had 9 instances of unsuccessful discharge. So they went and returned to jail within those 60 days. And 198 successful. So we are very happy with the results. 16 out of 16 DOC housed inmates were successful, so that's great news as well, and I'm sure the DOC is happy about that as well.
Yeah.
We served a total of 212 inmates, and then we had 488 contacts with inmates. So multiple inmates received multiple connections to resources, and we kind of broke it down as to what resources we connected inmates to, and just so that you guys have more information of what our adult mental health social worker is doing in the jail for those 20 hours a week.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this is a part-time position, so when you look at these numbers and looks like a heavy load, this is a part-time social worker position.
Now, isn't she also receiving help through court services?
I don't believe that Neil was in the jail through the pandemic. Jill was one of the only, they consider them volunteers, even though they're staff, in the jail allowed in. So she was providing services throughout the whole pandemic, and our 4-county area gives us grant money to reimburse some of those hours that Jill is at the jail, and we were the only county that were actually able to sustain services throughout the pandemic, so we're really proud of that as well.
Good job, Jill.
Yeah.
Are you guys able to, I know one of the biggest areas that some of the inmates are struggling from right now is getting DVS services to reinstate licenses and renew licenses and plethora of things in that.
Yeah, and that's part of what Neil helps with. So Jill, if you want to speak to a little bit about DVS and employment, that's kind of Neil's area, but if you have any information, feel free to speak up on that.
I don't have a ton of information on that. I just know that a lot of especially the DOC inmates, want their ID, especially before they leave the jail, and we still have not come up with a way to get them their ID. You know, I talked about it last summer, I think, when I came and spoke in front of you guys, that, you know, without an ID, they can't get a job. Without a job, they can't get housing. It just, one thing leads to another. So Neil's pet project was to find a way to get the inmates an ID. I haven't heard any update on that process. Employment, we do have a list of employers now that will hire felons. I also have a housing list of potential renters that will rent to felons. But when these inmates don't have any money to put down on a place, it's hard to get them in anywhere.
Don't you have to have an address to get an ID?
I actually don't know that answer. I'm not sure.
You would, might be your parents' address, but you have to put something on your license.
Yeah, you have some place where you can receive mail. That is
Yeah.
so
Not a box number?
a P.O. box will not work.
No,
but
you
you have
need
to
an
have a physical
address.
address that you could receive mail if.
And that's that might be an issue for some of them, not all of them. You know, some have burned bridges and.
Well,
We've also came up with that with phone numbers, so, they either need to buy a track phone or that kind of system in order to get a phone number, to get a call back about housing or a call back about employment. And so we've had a couple different programs that we've utilized to get free phones for inmates, and then in that instance, we've had them mailed to the Human Service Center and then had the appointment with the consumer, given them the phone, set it up so that way they have that phone number. The other piece that we really struggle with is housing. I think the statistics were 43% were homeless upon discharge, and that's extremely high. In order to be considered homeless, to be eligible for some of the long-term homeless vouchers, you have to be homeless for a period of 2 weeks. And so we have set up inmates with tents and sleeping bags and those kinds of things for that 2-week period of time before they're eligible to be having a VI SPDAC completed to get them entered onto the homeless list. So it's really a catch-22. I mean, you have to have an address to get the ID, you have to have a job to get housing,
Yep.
you have to be homeless 2 weeks to get on the list. I mean, there's so many different factors that play into this. So considering all of that, I think we're doing a splendid job.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I was at an Association of Minnesota Counties District meeting today, and during the break had a kind of a side conversation with the commissioner from another county talking about essentially prevention and diversion, and I mentioned the success of this program, and I said, I don't have the exact number now, but I know it was at least 92% success rate, so I'm happy to see that it's 96.
Because we did not make you a liar, so.
I know the inmates are pretty excited about getting their stimulus checks. It seems like I'm constantly checking online for them to see if their stimulus checks have been sent out. So maybe that'll help with the housing.
It really, I mean, it's really, important to make sure, to help them succeed, because I've said this before, when I worked in the jail and you'd release somebody and they'd say, you'll never see me here in here again. Well, a couple weeks later, they were back because they had a warrant out, because they didn't pay their fines, their court fees and that kind of stuff. And so even though they hadn't created or committed another crime, that was a crime because they hadn't paid their warrants. So, you need to get them, the job and the housing and all that stuff so they can be successful again, and they won't go back to jail. So a lot of them will, but a lot of them won't.
Once we're all moved over there, it would be a little bit easier for probably to work out something to get their IDs or driver's license reinstated and that sort of stuff. Well,
I
maybe
think
not
everything will be
reinstated.
better when we get it.
At least an ID, Minnesota ID.
Yeah, you get them an ID, yeah, the license we can't reinstate because
No.
it's based on, they may have to go down to
Yeah,
Plymouth,
and they may have lost it
depending on
for
what their
a
issue
year
is.
or whatever.
Any other
The
questions for
problem
Diane?
is the fact that, and I've brought this up with some of my meetings with the DVS, is a lot of the people that have revoked license, you can do an online permit test for anything other than a revoked one. So a new permit, yes. Somebody who got a DWI, they still have to do it physically in person. And because of now that they rolled out the online piece, it was supposed to create more accessibility to the in-persons, which in all reality isn't true at this point. So, and a lot of these people are having to drive because there's only 19 locations open.
Yep,
Somebody in Wright County is driving to either Plymouth
yep.
and they don't have a license, so they're relying on a friend to get them to this location to take this test.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All things we are challenged with.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
so I'm
Thanks, Diane.
really happy with this program. Thank you for all your work.
Rest of you, Jill,
thanks,
you're doing all the work.
Doing the heavy lifting.
Thanks.
Good fun. All right, now the advisory committee minutes from the May 26th.
So yeah, we did not achieve a quorum on May 26th, but we had some good discussion. We had the regular agenda items. We had our mental health update, a public health task force update. Greg Wise, our dental health coordinator, was able to be with us and talked about his position and what he can do working with the 4 counties. Commissioner Hewsome was there and provided us with an American Rescue Plan Relief Plan update. We provided the telework update for the board now that we have. I'm going to say we've met our whole complement of 48 teleworkers, but we're really at about 45 or 46 because I like to just have a couple to play with. So we are basically, that's what we told the board we would be at before we moved into the new building, and we've achieved that. We ran out of time, so we weren't able to really share our annual report. And we will be meeting again in July. That'll be our first meeting that'll be in person, and that is on July 28th. Since we didn't have a quorum, we didn't pass any kind of anything, so we really don't have anything other than information for you today.
And what do you have for director's comments?
What's that?
Oh, do you have anything, Commissioner Houston, from the meeting?
No, I mean, she, yeah, covered it, but it was Greg Wise. He did say that, I should have brought my minutes, but he's making contact with the schools for, so children can receive dental care without pulling them out of schools and maybe some other health things.
Parents kind of
So,
appreciate as well.
Yep, so I thought that was kind of a exciting news too, that we can, you know, it helps make sure that they get the services, and it doesn't mean the parents have to take them, you know, to another facility too, so.
That's all I have for that.
Director's comments?
Director's comments, yes, I do have a couple, thank you. I should be in your packet, just that you know that I've provided a letter of support to the Central Minnesota Mental Health Center. They are in the process of becoming a certified community behavioral health clinic. And they need county support to achieve certification, so that was provided to them. Housing support, I don't think I have anything in the packet regarding this. However, Diane Erkins, who is here, I believe had been talking with Commissioner Vetch about the same group that came last year and was looking to put up some multifamily housing in the Monticello area, and so the City Council of Monticello is now working with them. I don't know if you want to say anything else, Diane, but this seems like it's moving forward pretty well, and it would allow for more than a handful of either units to prevent homelessness and units for people with disabilities.
Yep, just a quick rundown. It's Duffy Development. They're working 7th and Elm in Monticello to do a apartment building complex. So the apartment building would have 53 units and then 6 twin home units beside it as well. The twin home units would be 4-bedroom units. The Minnesota Housing and Finance Authority is looking at bigger units, so they're really pushing developers to do bigger units. Of those 53 units, 7 would be designated as long-term homeless and 4 would be designated as person with disability units. They do have a service provider on already. It's the Salvation Army, and they have units that they're providing these services already in Big Lake. There's 2 housing complexes that they provide services in Big Lake, and then there's 1 in Maple Grove.
So we feel this would be an asset to the county to have this housing. As you know, the developer gets pretty good hefty federal subsidy for providing this type of housing, so we think it's beneficial for the people here to take advantage of that. And the fact that they have somebody in-house that's taking care of the services means that it's not a big lift for Health and Human Services.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, that would be like the apartment building they just constructed here. Essentially, I think there was 6 or 7 units that were designated for homeless.
7 long-term homeless units,
Okay.
yeah, at Aloha Apartments in Buffalo.
Okay.
There is another developer that just reached out on Friday, and I asked them several questions as to if they've talked with the city or the commissioner. I've not received any word back yet. That was for a development in Delano. So if any of you receive information, feel free to send them my way, because now we're really on a time crunch before that Minnesota Housing Finance Authority deadline of July 15th to have all the paperwork
We'll
completed.
get lots of calls on the 14th.
Yeah, let's hope not.
Just a couple of side notes, I guess. As you're aware of a potential state shutdown, if the legislators don't come up with a funding, budget plan, and apparently the last time this happened in 2011, 80% of government was allowed to carry on, but under the new court ruling since then, that the courts would not be allowed to say that the funding could continue during a shutdown. I'm not overly worried about it now, but I think I've also not received any direction from DHS or MDH about, in the event of a potential shutdown, what that would mean for HHS. So I guess I'm just sitting with everybody else waiting to see what happens. Return to work this morning, I think went pretty well. We're a big agency. We didn't have any agency-wide thing other than some signs up and things like that, but I think the teams did a nice job of getting together and welcoming people back to work. So it was nice to drive up, and there's a lot more cars in the parking lot and a lot more people in the building. So I was very happy to see everybody back at work. The only other item I had was vaccination efforts. Apparently Wright County maybe is lagging in some of the young adolescent vaccinations, and we've been contacted by MDH to mitigate some things. We're the best of the poor performing counties, I guess is a one way to say it. So if you want to take anything from that, but if you have any questions, Sarah is also here and could answer any questions you might have.
Doesn't surprise me. Most people didn't go in for well checks or things like that, and
So that's all I have, Commissioners, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
I got a couple questions. Otsego, I know they were looking, there was somebody that was looking at putting in some workforce housing or something less expensive in Otsego, but it seems to me the city of Otsego turned them down, did they?
Was this a number of months ago? Like
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything back from that at all.
All right, and then regarding Otsego, that place on 39 and 19, mental health or inpatient, right? Is that up and running, do you know?
I haven't heard anything that has started yet.
Haven't
Okay,
seen anything come across. That's not that old restaurant area?
yeah,
Oh.
yeah, the old Timothy.
I drive by there. I haven't seen any signage up there either that they're working, so I would say, it seems like there were like 3 or 4 things going on before the pandemic, and it just seems like they were
I
all,
forgot
the
about
wheels were
that.
turning, and then they all kind of hit the brakes, and then this one is the one that continued working with the city and is going
Northstar
forward.
did purchase the building and they are undergoing renovations.
Okay, because I thought the city finally did approve everything. And then I noticed, or I read in the paper, or it was online or something, but about a place that just had recently opened not that long ago up in East Bethel?
Oh, really?
Closed one, I thought it was.
They
Yeah,
just closed it, yes. It's a PRTF, a psychiatric,
It was a state-run one, and they opened it up, and then
yeah, it wasn't open very long,
they were
less
running
than a
into some
year.
violations. That reminds me, though, I do have one more announcement. There will be a groundbreaking for the new behavioral mental health center in St. Cloud that we have got that $5 million of state funding for on June 24th. So
Okay.
that will be.
Finally groundbreaking.
I know, and I'm not here on the 24th. It's like, seriously, after all this time, and yeah, so I
It
won't be
seems like
there.
it's been years, but I don't know. Maybe not
I
that
should have
long.
kept my schedule open just in case the
Yeah.
groundbreaking was gonna be on June 24th.
But the one in Bethel, did we have any kiddos there at all?
I don't think we did.
Not one that
I
we,
think we had referred kids, but
good. One less thing to worry about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do we want, just so you're aware, Sunset Ridge is a letter, I sent an email out to the county. If you're familiar with Sunset Ridge, it's a boarding and lodge place that the state licenses, and we hold a housing supports agreement with them, and after 27 fire violations and other things going on, yeah, that's not the worst of it. I won't say it here. So we will be ending our relationship with them, and they do have about 21 men living there that would
That's the one
otherwise
in
be
Annandale?
homeless. That's in Annandale. I think there's
Yeah.
an Annandale address, like Maple Lake, out in that area. Really not a great situation. Our actual housing supports
Would've been
agreement
Maple
will end on June 30th, but that seems like it's too short of notice to figure something out for the folks. Most of the people staying there we're not the county of financial responsibility, but as the people that was holding the supports agreement, I feel like we do have an obligation. So we will not sever our relationship at this time until August 31st. We have some ideas of bringing the WOW van out there and meeting with the clients out there in the parking lot to do like a min-trace assessment, see if we can figure something else out for them. In the meantime, I've notified the other counties that have individuals staying there that we would no longer be holding the housing agreement. Plus, I think it's the only one here, and they were getting the supplemental rate of an additional $400 on top of the housing supports grant for other services, and they weren't abiding by the rules that were required in order to hold that. So we talked with them, with DHS last week. It was a fairly concerning situation going on.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
One other quick question. Regarding the rental assistance that was happening,
Rent Me, something help me, or Rent Me help, or
the newest one through the state.
I don't know if Kim was here earlier. I understand that
She's
they're
still here.
starting.
She's still here.
If she is, Kim, have you
Hiding.
heard?
And she's got to use her outside voice though if she's going to talk to us.
I haven't had any recent updates. The last thing I heard was and it was all for renters.
I think we figure we have about 25%, maybe that's even high, of people renting and so yeah, it'd be nice to have other additional help for people that are not renters, but yes, this should be a big boon for renters in the county.
Yeah, well, not so much renters, but the landlords.
And the
Because if I remember correctly,
One hence
Right.
the other, yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
because the landlord had to agree to it.
Yeah, so the renter should keep the roof over their head and the landlord should have the money in their pocket that they have been going without for quite a while.
So I was just kind of curious, because I know we had a lot of landlords that were asking us about funding.
I don't know if I know that's trickling out the door now. I know that there wasn't anything going out the door and what I heard is it's starting, but I don't think it's like wide open yet. I think they're still processing.
You know, that online application. All right, thank you.
We have anything else here then? All right, if there's not, I guess we'll adjourn the Health and Human Services meeting at 2:47.
Thank you.